Hey Lexi, did you hear? No more Fantastic Beasts films.
What?
Yep, so should we finally share our thoughts on the last film, which was apparently the last film?
Yeah.
Then let's get the conversation started. Hello and welcome to LexiCon. It is Maddie.
Lexi.
Dylan.
And today we're going to be presenting our take on Fantastic Beasts: Secrets of Dumbledore. Now this is a show that we actually recorded back at the end of summer, but it got pushed back on the series for a little bit. And obviously this was before we knew the fate of the films.
Yeah.
So we are recording this intro as of finding out the news just the other day that the films have been put on the shelf, as it were.
Yeah.
I don't know how I feel about that exactly. Actually, I'm kind of bummed. I mean, I was, as I say in the episode, I was hoping they were going to make more.
I was curious to see where they were going to go with the others.
I guess they had nowhere to go with the others.
I guess.
Still don't know if they're going to be doing the proposed Dumbledore and Grindelwald series. I haven't heard anything about that.
I kind of hope so at this point.
I did read speculation that they're going to be looking to do another Potter film, more than likely Cursed Child.
That could be interesting as well.
And I also feel like that's a conversation for another day.
Yeah.
I just wanted to give this little preamble here, mainly because during the episode, of course, we don't know what was going on, and we pontificate on whether or not they're going to continue the series.
Yeah.
So in case we seem confused about anything that now seems obvious, it was just because we recorded this a couple months ago, but I think most of our feelings on the movie are still perfectly valid and still the same and haven't changed any.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So anyway, without any further ado, let's talk about the most recent Fantastic Beasts film, Secrets of Dumbledore.
Yeah.
And yes, today we're taking a look at Fantastic Beasts: Secrets of Dumbledore, the third movie in what is, I don't know if it's a trilogy or if it's going to be, what would 5 be, a pentalogy?
I do not know.
Well, regardless, we're talking about it. This is not strictly going to be a review of the film because I feel like it's a little late for that since it's been out for a while. It's going to be most similar to the episodes we've done where we've broken down the various Harry Potter books for some of their inconsistencies and just interesting little tidbits within them. We've got, 2 on each book, I think, and 3 on Sorcerer's Stone.
Something like that.
So it's going to be somewhat like that, but maybe not quite as in-depth. And there'll be some review elements and just some things we want to point out. But it's just an overall look at the movie.
Yeah.
I took some notes. I did another rewatch of it. And the notes are chronological to the events within the movie. Mm-hmm. I don't have time cues or anything, but I think anybody who's seen the film can follow along. And if you haven't, I think we'll give you a pretty good gist of what's going on.
Yeah.
I do want to say I liked this movie. Not as much as I liked the first movie. Mm-hmm. I didn't think it was quite as magic as the first movie, pun intended. But I thought it was still good, especially on my second viewing of it. I really thought it was quite good. Definitely better than the second movie. And I think that plays into it to a degree, too. If this had followed up the original Fantastic Beasts, I might have been disappointed in it. But considering how disappointed I was in the second Fantastic Beasts, Crimes of Grindelwald, this was really a breath of fresh air following up on that. And I thought it did a lot of good for the series and was a very enjoyable movie in and of itself as well.
Yeah.
Did you guys enjoy it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Now, that's not to say there's not problems with it.
Oh, it's definitely problems.
Of which we're going to talk in the next few minutes. There's definitely, but not nearly as many problems as the second movie.
Yeah.
I don't have a compare and contrast with that, but maybe if we have fun with this, we'll go back and take a look at that one.
Honestly, I barely remember the second movie.
Same.
Yeah, you're better off for it.
I just kind of forgot it.
It's like you know the memory.
My brain disliked it so much it
really quickly, since we're talking about the second movie, there's one thing I didn't bother to note in my notes because it technically doesn't come up within Secrets of Dumbledore. Mm-hmm. What happened to Nagini? Remember they made this big deal about...
Oh, yeah.
It turns out Voldemort's snake was really a girl who gets cursed to be a snake.
What did happen to Nagini?
She's a major factor in the second movie, and she's Credence's, seeming love interest, if perhaps just a good friend. And then just nothing. No Nagini in this whatsoever. Which, again, is not necessarily a bad thing, because I wasn't with that whole, hey, it turns out Nagini was a person that got cursed. I kind of was against that, but... So I'm kind of glad they dropped it.
It's 2 different Nagini.
But, I mean, technically they did update all the law and whatnot to say that it was a snake.
Yeah, no, that was canon, that it's that Nagini.
Yeah.
I know.
But
that wasn't just
it's just strange to spend so much time focusing on in the second movie, and just third one, no mention whatsoever. And again, that's not necessarily a bad thing, because I think for the story, it's better off not being there, but it's just really weird to focus on it, on them, on the character, and then just drop it.
I agree.
Because I guess if we go back and watch the second movie again, maybe we'll notice them, but I don't remember there being any I mean... She was still around as far as I know. Obviously, she's still around. She didn't die or anything. And I don't think she had taken on full snake form at that point. They just kind of forgot about her.
Yeah.
But again, I'm not necessarily complaining about that because that was one of the problems I had with the second movie. So again, there's not going to be any notes about that, but that is something I thought about watching the movie. It's like, wow, no Nagini.
Yeah.
All right, so the movie starts out with Dumbledore. What?
I forgot about Nagini as a human, honestly. Once
He
again,
just entirely erased the second movie.
yeah, it's like that memory water liquid thing, the memory water vein.
What?
From the first movie,
yeah.
remember?
The
Oh,
memory
yeah,
water
yeah.
vein.
I was fine with it. I love the first
Memory
movie.
erase vein.
I think the first movie is great.
The
You want
Man
to
in
set that
Black
drink
vein.
over here?
Sure.
That'd be easier so you don't have to turn around. Of course, I just moved my notes completely to make room for your drink. I think that'll work.
No, it's not.
I just think they should on like HBO Max or something. Just do it a little like one of those little miniseries, but have it be like an actual documentary styled series, of Newt and all these fantastic beasts.
Honestly, that's what the show.
I kind of thought that's what the movies were supposed to be.
Exactly, but clearly it's not. So now I need a miniseries on HBO Max.
Well, I wonder too. There's going to be a Dumbledore Grindelwald series apparently that Jude Law is exec producing. So a lot of people are afraid they're just going to drop Fantastic Beasts completely and focus on that. But I'm thinking maybe the Dumbledore Grindelwald story will now, spin out into the miniseries. And if they do more Fantastic Beasts movies, they can focus more on Newt and Tina and Jacob and Queenie and Theseus and Lally.
Yeah.
And
I have no idea what
I mean,
to
it's like,
expect at this point.
I like Dumbledore and Grindelwald as most of the next person, but I'm going into Fantastic Beasts. That's not really what you're expecting.
Is that
For the
series going to be like about the same time as these movies?
since Jude Law's, I don't know. The inference I got from the little bit I read was that it was going to be the same time period, and Jude Law would keep playing Dumbledore in it. I mean, for all I know, it could. Well, again, if you're going to do a whole series, you could flash back more and see more of their youth together, the month or so they spent together in Godric's Hollow.
Yeah.
And even their stories before that, and since then, they could do a lot, but I assume they're at least going to do some of what's going on now. And that's what I'm saying. Why not spin that off into the series, and then you can focus more on the central characters of the Fantastic Beasts narrative in the upcoming Fantastic Beasts films. Although apparently there is talk now that it was only ever intended to at least be a trilogy, so there may not be 5 films, but I always heard it was going to be 5.
Yeah.
Who knows?
So it sounds like they're hedging their bets a little bit.
Yeah.
But we'll see. Let's get back to focusing on the third one now. As I say, it starts off with Dumbledore meeting Grindelwald in a cafe or a restaurant. Mm-hmm. And I figured we were starting with a dream. I mean, at least I hope we were. Because Dumbledore's reminiscence of Grindelwald always made it seem like they had no contact between Godric's Hollow and when they finally met for the big duel.
Mm-hmm. This movie very much shows that they had a bit.
A bit, yeah, and we'll get into that. And to be fair, Albus is secretive enough that it's possible there was more.
Yeah.
And I mean, and his exact words were not that we never saw each other again from that fateful day that he left Godric's Hollow until we met for the duel. But he just seemed to imply that they hadn't had any contact.
But he is secretive. He's like, that was more, but you don't need to know about it, so I'm not going to mention it.
I will say, too, I like Mads Mikkelsen, the actor, but I'm not crazy about him as Grindelwald. Although on second viewing, I liked him better, so maybe he will grow into it.
Yeah.
This has nothing to do with my feelings about Johnny Depp, one way or the other. It's just watching him as Grindelwald, I was like, eh. But the second viewing, like I say, he grew on me a little bit, so if he continues in the role, maybe I'll really get into him.
Maybe.
No, they should recast him every movie.
And again, I think he's a fantastic actor, but I wasn't crazy about him as Grindelwald. But Jude Law is really growing on me as Dumbledore. And look, I'm going to say flat out, after watching the second time, I think this is the best cinematic Dumbledore we've ever gotten.
Wow.
All respect due to Sir Richard Harris, but I mean the first 2 Harry Potter books don't have a lot of Dumbledore content in them, so he didn't get to do a lot.
Yeah.
In those movies, so we didn't get to see how he would play the role when the Dumbledore character started getting fleshed out more and more and having more to do within the story. And I'm not a fan of Michael Gambon's Dumbledore at all, and I didn't think Jude Law was great in Crimes of Grindelwald, but in Secrets of Dumbledore, I think he's absolutely fantastic. I think this is the Dumbledore we've always wanted.
Nice.
I think he is great as Dumbledore. And again, he's a somewhat younger Dumbledore, but he's Dumbledore, and he's great. And that's another reason why I think the series could be really great if we get to see more of this Dumbledore.
And say, all right, we just gotta wait a while, let Jude Law get older, and then we'll remake the Harry Potter movies. Only problem is we can't get Daniel Radcliffe in them back. We're gonna
Make
need
it
new
as
kids.
a series.
I'm down for it. Like I say,
Like Percy Jackson.
best cinematic Dumbledore we've ever gotten.
Can't wait for the Percy Jackson series.
In that scene of Dumbledore and Grindelwald, they're making an allusion to or a straight up comment about the I don't know what it's called. I don't even know if I wrote it down correctly here, but the blood shit, the little thing that Dumbledore had Newt recover, stuff. But this supposedly is stops Albus or Grindelwald from
moving against the
other one. And I thought that was a really kind of a good setup to explain why Albus never went after Grindelwald when Grindelwald was rising to power. He explained away to Harry saying he was afraid to face him, not because of his skill magically, but because Grindelwald might know the truth about who killed Ariana.
Yeah.
And this is another thing, I hate to get too much into it because it's going to play into later in the books, but like I said, it felt like a better reason than Dumbledore's in the books for why he never went after Grindelwald, but of course, again, that's going to be referenced later on. But getting back to the scene, Grindelwald, again, it's their blood in like a little vial that has a chain on it where you can wear it around your neck.
Yeah.
And there's one point where Grindelwald's like, sometimes I still feel like it's around my neck. And it really felt like sexual illusion or double entendre. I mean, we know there's a romantic history between the two of them.
Oh, God.
And it's clearly spelled out in this, not in any sort of explicit detail, but...
Yeah.
Did you not feel that, seriously?
I probably did, and I probably chose to ignore it.
Overall, I thought it was a good scene, and it set the tone for Albus and Grindelwald's relationship, past and present. I'm glad in the fact that it really was just a dream or imagined, whatever, it wasn't a real scene, because like I say, they shouldn't be meeting in a cafe at this point.
No.
In their relationship, based on everything that I know. Next up, we get our first appearance of Newt. He's sailing down a river, and it feels like a nice little callback to when Harry rowed the boats across the lake to Hogwarts.
Yeah. Of
course, he has his faithful Bowtruckle with him, and I always thought Bowtruckles were brown, but this one's always been depicted green in the movies.
Maybe they can be either one, depending on the age.
Not even that. There could be different...
different ones. But also, depending on the age, like a younger one might be green,
Depending on the types of plants in the region.
And I feel like we've probably covered this in the reviews of the other movies, but I just wanted to bring attention to it again. Speaking of Fantastic Beasts, we meet a new one, the Chillin', which is sort of like a dragon deer, which is another, it's funny to say, but real-life mythical beast.
Yeah.
Something that exists outside of the world of Harry Potter.
Chinese mythology.
But one that's never been mentioned in any Harry Potter text before and isn't in the Fantastic Beasts and Where to Find Them textbook.
That's really interesting based on the history provided in this movie.
And the fact that we get to see Newt interacting with them, it'd be nice. And I get it. Sometimes things change. You need to bring up stuff that you didn't have time to put into the story before. This is the same thing that we've talked about in the books, too. Sometimes, as the story grows, you realize you need to make a change that doesn't quite fit in because, every little piece of it, of this entire large unfolding story wasn't planned from the very beginning. So it's understandable and it's not egregious, but it is nice when something's in the existing lore that we have.
So we're going to need an updated version of this book, because this movie, it says that everyone selected their leaders.
I do feel like it's but it's also apparently very rare too. So maybe he didn't feel the need to include it in just the wide circulation textbook version.
Maybe.
Do you think it helps that it's a real mythological creature that exists outside of Harry Potter for them to then reference it, or is it's not something that's just made up for the movie and then it's like, there's another made-up beast that never appears anywhere before and it seems strange that it wouldn't, but this is at least something that does have some other references.
Yeah, I like that it's a reference to the real world.
Well, I just think it helps a little bit in the fact that it's not in some of the existing lore. Well, it's in other lore. It's in some other mythological books out there, so maybe you can lean on that a bit.
I also just like it since, Harry Potter is supposed to technically be in our world, just also magic, So it's like, explain some of the mythology, mix in some of the mythology we have,
Speaking of the Chillin', the Credence and some of Grindelwald's followers show up and attack the Chillin', casting what appears to be Avada Kedavra, and they use it twice on the same creature. And
it's still not immediately dead.
Yeah, I had that note a little later on, because when he comes back to see it, why is the Mama Chillin' still alive? Because Avada Kedavra kills instantly every time we've seen it. It's just instant rushing death. Just, you're alive 1 minute, the spell hits you, you're dead. That's it.
Apparently it doesn't instantly kill a Chillin'.
No. You see, that was obviously just another green spell.
No, it's Avada Kedavra instead.
It deals damage.
I mean, he's not necessarily wrong. They don't say Avada Kedavra.
But what other spell are they going to use and why?
And there's only so many colors, so there's got to be some spells.
And it does end up killing it.
There's got to be some spells that have the same color, light.
It's just another harmful.
But it certainly does seem that it's Avada Kedavra. You would think so. They're aiming something at it that's going to eventually kill it. It's green jet of light. Newt doesn't block it.
Yeah, I feel as though as far as the movies go,
Avada Kedavra is unblockable by a spell. Remember that.
We're on the test there.
As far as the movies go, if they're going to double up colors, I feel as though they're not going to give green to another spell. Like, that one's just become too iconic.
I was trying to think, like, we know a stunning spell is red.
Okay.
And then Avada Kedavra is green. Those might be
Patronus
the only...
stuff is blue.
Patronus is
Patronus.
I think spell it almost
Blue.
red.
I'm not sure it's...
Possibly.
Yeah, I think it is, because I think in the climactic scene of Deathly Hallows, it says red meets green as far as their spells. So there's an example of spells doubling up in color, so...
But unless it's doubled up in green in the books, I don't feel like they do it in the movies.
Right, and again, since it seems to be a harmful spell, you think it's probably Avada Kedavra.
Probably.
But I
absolutely got annoyed by that.
I mean, the only defense of it I can think of is maybe the chillin is just so powerfully magical that it still kills it, so it's not like, oh, it doesn't kill it.
It just takes a little extra.
But it's so powerfully magical it can resist for at least a moment or two. Longer than a moment, because there's a whole chase and everything. And it comes back, so it's several minutes at least.
At least.
At least.
At least times 3.
At least.
This is the scene where we first see Ezra Miller as Credence again, looking like a young Severus Snape. Anybody else get those vibes?
Kind of.
I mean, the long hair and the black... I mean, he's young Snape. I felt like that's what they were going for. I don't know if anybody else did.
When would Snape come around?
Snape would be the same age as Harry's parents, so he would have been born in like the 60s.
So we're not quite there yet.
No, definitely not. Yeah, and again,
probably just getting into his parents.
As Alan Rickman played him in the movies, maybe they were trying to infer that he was a bit older, because obviously Alan Rickman was older than Snape would have been at the times in Snape's life that Alan Rickman was.
Still, probably not. Well, yeah,
but they're not. But his age is never mentioned, and Alan Rickman didn't specifically look old.
Yeah.
So there's no saying that.
But even if the movies made him
with that,
older,
I mean, still
we still aren't there yet.
Probably no more than 20 years different, and that would have put us in the 40s, and I think we're in the 30s at this point.
Maybe
even the 20s. I'm not sure. I know the duel between.
Pretty sure we're in the 30s at one point.
I know the duel between Dumbledore and Grindelwald takes place in 1945, because I always thought it was supposed to be kind of analogous to World War II.
Yeah.
So I know we're getting there, but
that's what I'm saying. I think we're either in the 30s, because I don't think we've gotten into the early 30s yet.
Oh, speaking of people who shouldn't be around yet, well, we'll get to that, because let's stay chronological. As Grindelwald's supporters are chasing Newt through the jungle, they're flying after him.
Yeah.
And why can they fly? The only wizards we've ever heard mention of being able to fly are Voldemort and Snape. Mm-hmm. And in Deathly Hallows, during the chase early on with the Seven Potters, when some of the members of the Order of the Phoenix are reporting that Voldemort can fly, they're doing it as if this is an amazing thing. We don't see people able to fly. He can fly, you know.
Don't we see that
Remus,
in the movies?
He can fly.
Don't we see some of the Death Eaters being able to do it?
Well, I know we see Voldemort doing it in that chase.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure we see some Death Eaters doing it too, because I remember you being mad about it.
I don't doubt it.
I was gonna say maybe
we're gonna do breakdowns like this of the movies too at some point. I think
maybe some of Grindelwald's followers could do it, and maybe that's where the Death Eaters got it from.
And again, and then maybe it was something that was more in vogue at one time and dropped off a bit, and then people relearned it. You know, things come in and out of fashion. The spells are no different. Remus says that to Harry when Harry's trying to figure out who the Half-Blood Prince is based on spells like Levi Corpus. So
yeah,
it seems in the movies flying is much more common.
That they were just trying to make up for that flying stuff in the
even
original
when Snape is chased out of Hogwarts right before the Battle of Hogwarts and he jumps out the window and they're like, he died? No, it seems like he learned some tricks from his master, and you can see him flying. So I mean, they make it seem like it's this very rare gift to be able to pull off. But again, maybe it was less rare at one point, and it just sort of the knowledge of it withered away over time.
Maybe.
Reversing back what we talked about with Nagini, Credence was like the linchpin character of the last two movies, but he's very marginalized in this movie. He's not nearly as important in this as he was.
Yeah.
And I wonder what that's a function of. Is it a function of they want to focus more on Grindelwald and Dumbledore? Is it a function of maybe this is the last Fantastic Beasts movie and they're going into the series of Grindelwald and Dumbledore? Or is it a function of Ezra Miller's personal problems and maybe they want to get him out of the series?
I feel like it could kind of be any of it. I don't even know how much of that was known
at the time this
I was going to say,
the movie was
I think
produced.
Based on timing for the movie and whatnot, it wouldn't be that last one. I could be wrong, but I don't think it's quite that last one.
Who knows?
But I mean, he's clearly a major figure in the first two movies. And
definitely.
He's a somewhat major figure, but he's more of a supporting figure in this, and it doesn't look like they're setting him up to be much of a to have much of a prominent role going forward, since they basically established that he's dying and there's nothing they can do to save him.
Yeah.
Because now apparently being an obscurial and having your magic held in for so long conditions you to an early death.
You can be as magical as you want, but you cannot escape death.
After Newt comes back to find the Mama Chillin still alive somehow, on the verge of death, and he escapes. He passes out or what? I think he crawls. No, he doesn't. He's laying there with his case, and he's got the second Chillin.
Yeah.
And there's this really cool shot that I didn't even notice the first time we watched it. And even the second time, it took me multiple viewings where you actually get to see inside Newt's case again, which is one of the neatest things about the Fantastic Beasts series. That whole ecosystem that lives in his case, and one little creature sounds like, hey, and this balloon dragon bird comes and flies out and puffs up and carries Newt in his case. And that's really convenient to have that balloon dragon bird there.
True.
I'm not sure what it's called or if it exists in the book or anything. I didn't bother to research it, but I'm just... very convenient.
It's a big balloon.
Unfortunately, that is one of my big complaints about the series. There's a lot of very convenient bits of magic. And I mean, I get that you're creating a magical world, and I'm sure you could say that about the books, but I feel like the books established that world. And there's a lot of things we see in this that we never saw anywhere else.
Yeah.
Wasn't there a bit of that in the first movie, too?
More so in the... There was a bit in the first, but more so in the second. I'm thinking like that scene where Newt's throwing dust up and seeing this whole scene the way it played out. Well, and then you talked about, I don't remember if it was right before we started or when we actually started recording, but the memory erasing rain that the bird was able to create.
Lots of convenience.
And I don't know, some of it just feels more forgivable than others. And this is honestly forgivable, because I'm sure there's beasts that weren't cataloged in what we've been allowed to read. I'm just wow, we've never seen that before. It's good he had that. Then at Grindelwald's compound, we see Queenie for the first time again, who remember turned on Jacob in the second movie and went along with Grindelwald.
Yeah, I don't remember that either.
And there's a scene where Credence and the followers have delivered the Chillin to Grindelwald, and Grindelwald kills the Chillin.
Yeah.
Then he puts his spirit in or whatever, so the Chillin will pick him later on. As you talked about, apparently Chillins have been used to choose leaders in the past, and even though they don't still do that, apparently a Chillin's decision still carries a bit of weight.
Yeah.
But I thought it was funny, Queenie's looking out, and all of a sudden he kills the Chillin. She has this strange reaction. And I'm just thinking, is she reacting to him killing the Chillin, or the fact that Grindelwald looks a little different in this movie? Oh my gosh.
He get
He used to look like Johnny Depp. Now he looks like Mads Mikkelsen. How'd that happen? Into what, Dill?
I said, they change your hair or something.
Yeah. Where'd the mustache go? Of course, Newt and Theseus come to the Hog's Head looking for Dumbledore. And we see young Aberforth, who I'm not sure the actor who played him, I should have looked at that, but I quite liked him as young Aberforth, younger Aberforth. And they say they're looking for, he's like, you'll be looking for my brother. I'll be looking for Albus Dumbledore. Yeah, that's my brother. But I just find it a bit odd that he's so forthcoming about his relationship with Albus. In the books, their relationship, it's not necessarily secret that Dumbledore has a brother, although a lot of people don't know about him. And the ones that do, Mad Eye says the picture, he shows Harry a picture of the original Order of the Phoenix in the book Order of the Phoenix. Mm-hmm. And Aberforth's in it, he's like, Aberforth, the only time I ever met him, strange bloke. So, I mean, it just seems, like he's sort of separated. A lot of people don't know that he has a brother, and certainly people who go to the Hog's Head don't even seem to realize it's Dumbledore's brother. Even Harry's like, that guy looks kind of familiar. Oh, well. And doesn't even realize that it's Dumbledore's brother until Deathly Hallows when he saves them once they apparate back into Hogsmeade. But it just seems like he's more forthcoming, and even Dumbledore is more forthcoming about their relationship than they would be in later years.
I would say maybe he is relatively forthcoming, but he's not just shouting hey, I'm Dumbledore's brother, come here, I'm Dumbledore's brother.
You know I'm Dumbledore's brother?
Come to the pub of Dumbledore's brother. It sounds like it could be a marketing tool.
Yeah, that seems
it seems strange to say Dumbledore, because he's Dumbledore too. Dumbledore's their surname. I'm the other Dumbledore, and I sound like Hagrid when Maddie does my voice.
But most people don't know him as Albus.
Yeah, well, I think a lot of people know him as Albus. They just call him Dumbledore.
Yeah, but
and lots of people call him both.
Yeah, but I was gonna say he's not against the information. He's just not handing it out unless it's necessary.
Well, and maybe literally handing out there. Yeah, that's my brother.
Man, imagine
he could have just been like Albus is upstairs. He's like, he's my brother.
Man, this movie should have been called Secrets of Albus.
What was Secrets of Dumbledore? Everybody's...
I know, that's a much funnier title. Secrets of Albus.
Yeah, but to be fair, the movie's more not just about Albus Dumbledore's secrets. Yeah. It's really more about Aberforth's secret.
Yeah.
Exactly. So it's appropriate. But, I was going to say, maybe over time, people just don't pick up on it as much.
when Dumbledore's meeting with Theseus and Newt upstairs at the Hog's Head, he says, and I quote, "The world as we know it is coming apart. Gellert's pulling it apart with hate, bigotry. Things that seem unimaginable today will seem inevitable tomorrow if we don't stop him." I mean, obvious allegory to modern times.
Yes.
Which, I mean, it would also fit the times that the book was, that the story is taking place, too, in the 30s and 40s, but plenty of allusion to what's going on in our world nowadays.
I feel as though that's a sad statement. It's like, yes, totally applicable during the 30s into the 40s. Also applicable today.
I feel like it's applicable in a lot of periods of time.
Definitely, but that's kind of sad.
But I think it is included here more as an allegory for modern times than anything else. It just also happens that the times, not only in the Wizarding world, but in the Muggle world at the time that it's set, it also fits as well.
Yes.
Because like I say, I always saw Grindelwald as sort of a Hitler analog, and it's certainly his downfall coming in 1945 at the end of the war. Do what?
So wasn't there a whole German character involved in this movie?
Yeah, Anton Vogel, the outgoing Supreme Mugwump of the International Confederation of Wizards.
You know, what are the Wizards during World War II?
Dealing with their own stuff?
Well, I always thought maybe that was a little bit of the reason we had Grindelwald and his uprising. Maybe, to the Muggles it was all just their world war, but maybe there was wizarding stuff going on there too.
That's the thing, the Wizards had their own war going on.
And I'm sure you don't remember based on the fact that you remember nothing before this, but Newt's brother Theseus was involved in World War I.
True.
Yeah, I know.
So,
how old are they?
World War I was like 1919, and these movies start in like the 20s. I have the script for Fantastic Beasts right over here, and it has a date. Hold on. Bear with us for just a second, everybody. I'm opening the Fantastic Beasts.
World War I ended in 1918.
I said like 1919.
July 28th, 1914 to November 11th, 1918.
Wow, that was my birthday.
Yep.
Or 60 plus years before I was born, but here we go. The original Fantastic Beasts script. Scene 1, exterior, somewhere in Europe, 1926.
Nice.
That's when the tale of the Fantastic Beasts tale begins, so that would only be
7 years
8
after
years
the war
after the war. No, 18.
Yeah.
You said it ended in 1918.
Yes. I said 7, and then you're like,
and
no.
I corrected 8 years.
Yeah. Okay.
Yes, I know how to math, whether you do or not. Anyway, moving on. This is also when we see the first of the mirror messages. In fact, Aberforth is wiping down his mirror behind the pub when Theseus and Newt come in. I think the first sign we actually see is Credence back at Grindelwald's compound, and he gets a message in the mirror that says, "Forgive me."
Yeah.
But I'm not... I don't understand the mirror. It's confusing to me, because it's going to be... Obviously, we ended the second film with Grindelwald telling Credence that he was a Dumbledore brother.
Yes.
This film reveals that he's a Dumbledore nephew to Albus, son to Aberforth.
Yes.
And Dumbledore reveals that to Credence about halfway through this movie. I'm not sure when they realized that Credence was the long-lost son of Aberforth. Mm-hmm. But Credence doesn't know that at this point, so I'm not sure why he's sending messages to the pub and receiving them.
Maybe that's just where it goes.
Well, okay, but he thinks Albus is connected to the Hog's Head.
Does he know it's going to Hog's Head?
So he's just randomly sending messages out. Even if he was magically saying, send this to Albus, why would it go to the Hog's Head? That's not Albus's place of residence. It should be going to Hogwarts. But this is the first one we see it from Credence's side. It says, "Forgive me." And he's going to... I probably haven't noted, but just in case I don't, I know he sends a message back. It's like, do you know what it's like to be alone? Mm-hmm. And again, who does Credence think he's talking to there? Because he doesn't realize he's Aberforth. Maybe he's just like, that's my other brother. And I'm like, do you know what it's like? Maybe he thinks he's talking to his other brother at that point. But the mirror thing felt a little off to me in the movie. Moving on, we see my boy Kowalski again. Kowalski. Options. I love Jacob. He is the best part of these movies, without a doubt.
Yeah.
And we get to meet Jessica Williams as Lally, and I think she is fantastic. Again, no pun intended. Well, maybe a little. And I hope we see more of her in upcoming installments. But the cynical side of me wonders if the character was created and or cast with Jessica specifically to answer charges of a lack of black, especially black female characters with agency in this series, particularly after the demise of Zoe Kravitz's Letta Lestrange in the previous movie. Whatever the case is, she is a welcome addition.
Yes.
But adding to the cynicism, they even seem to be pairing her with Theseus as another way to replace Letta, because she was Theseus's love and Newt's former love interest.
Yeah.
I don't know, like I said, maybe I'm just being cynical. And I think the character's great and the actress is great, so I really enjoyed her in the movie.
Yeah.
And then she and Jacob set off with what I think is a port key. It's a book that Albus
It
gave
acts
her.
like a port key.
Well, not exactly.
Kind of.
Port keys don't usually create a paper whirlwind and leave pieces of themselves behind when you take off. You usually just touch it and you kind of get sucked into the void. Okay,
Dumbledore gave it to him,
it's
so
not,
who knows what it
Porkies
does.
are never described like that in the text of Harry Potter. And the other times we've even seen them in the movies, they didn't behave that way.
No.
Right,
But
so
you could put, like, a charm on something to make it do stuff. So.
Why be so ostentatious, though?
It's Dumbledore.
But he knows you still need to be secretive.
That's
we just talked
secretive
about how
enough.
secretive he is.
That's
Oh,
secretive
yeah,
enough.
paper whirlwind.
Duh.
And pieces of paper just left behind when 2 people in a book disappear. That happens every day in New York.
It does.
That seems like a very convenient portkey, though. Like a book with like each page being a different portkey. That seems like it'd be very convenient.
Is that how you read it?
I mean, no, I'm just saying that would be convenient.
That's a neat idea, though.
Yeah, it's like flip through. Ah, yes, here's what I want to go. Boop.
I actually like that idea. Now, see, that would work. It's just like I say. It's just the world, the paper whirlwind it created, and then piece of paper is being left behind.
Yeah, that
when they
doesn't seem
portkey.
very convenient.
Look, nobody has explanations for what Dumbledore
Also,
does.
I know she holds out the book or whatever. She activates the book and she says to Jacob, "You know how this works, right?" Or something like that. Does he? Has he?
No.
I don't think we've seen him take a portkey.
I don't think he has.
I don't know. I don't remember anything from the second movie, and I half remember the first movie.
And of course, adding to the confusion, they come out of a fireplace, and that's flue powder, not a portkey.
Oh no, I unplugged my iPad.
God.
I was face
Do you need to take a
into
quick
my
pause?
iPad. No.
But I mean, a portkey just travels with you to wherever you go. I touch a
Yeah.
portkey, I get sucked in, I pop back out wherever I am, and there's the portkey with me.
Yeah.
You don't come out of a fireplace. That's flue powder.
It's a
Wasn't it a boot in Goblet of Fire?
Yeah.
It's a fluky.
And Dumbledore makes he turns a statue's head into a portkey, and we see a hairbrush as a portkey in Deathly Hallows. Anything can be a portkey.
Isn't there a character named Fluky in one of the shows Johnny watches?
But it's like
Either
a
in
portkey,
True
but
or
it can,
Abby Hatcher, I think.
but it can only take you to flue powder fireplace, not flue powder.
Again,
fireplaces.
she's like, "You know how this works." I'm like, "Clearly I don't, because I've never seen this stuff work this way before."
There's no specific flue powder fireplaces. I don't think. I think there's fireplaces.
Anyway, for whatever reason, this train is the meeting place for Dumbledore's Proto-Order of the Phoenix. And they start talking about Grindelwald and what they need to deal with. And Albus reveals that Grindelwald can see parts of the future.
Because.
Since when and how does Grindelwald see the goddamn future? This has never been mentioned anywhere. The ability to see the future has never been mentioned anywhere except for seers who make like prophecies and shit. So I guess that means Grindelwald is a seer?
He's doing better than Sith.
I mean, to be fair, it would make sense if Dumbledore has a bit of that power. Because he seems awfully prescient sometimes in putting stuff together in just the right place. And even in this movie, some of the things he does, it kind of seems like Dumbledore shares that ability.
Just Dumbledore and Grindelwald learned it together one time at summer camp.
It's sort of like the future walking they do with the Force in some of the Star Wars books. But I mean, this has never been established anywhere before. And it's all of a sudden, oh, by the way, Grindelwald can see the future. Like, what the fuck, Albus? You could have told me that a few years ago when we started this shit.
Real quick, I would just like to answer my own question that was unrelated to Harry Potter. The character is not Fluky, it's Fruky, and it's from True and the Rainbow Kingdom. It's the dog.
Wow.
But again, I guess now the canon is that Grindelwald can see the future. And like I say, it makes sense to me that Dumbledore shares that ability with him.
Yeah.
Look at the assassination attempt and the scarf he gives Theseus and the way they're put to use. And if you go back through the Harry Potter books, there's multiple instances of Dumbledore sort of like putting the pieces in place for something that's going to happen. That there's no reason
Dumbledore knows
you would
what's up.
think he knew it was going to happen.
That explains
Yeah,
half
these
the
are
questions we had in the
learned
books.
together and told nobody.
Especially like giving
That
Ron,
month in Godric's Hollow, they learned it.
like giving Ron the Deluminator, knowing that he was going to need a way back at some point. I mean, how would you know that if you can't see the... So, I mean, I think maybe Albus has that same ability. It's just not been revealed. But it did feel like out of the blue, like all of a sudden, oh yeah, by the way, Grindelwald can see the future.
Either Albus has that ability or he has like 300 IQ.
Look, is it not
High IQ
Dumbledore?
doesn't necessarily make you know what's going on.
Yes, I know.
I mean,
To
there's
leave
so
out a
many
bit
different
of
things that have to
the
fall into place for
information
things to
at
happen.
first.
Do what?
So is it not Dumbledore to get people involved
He's just
and leave
so
out some of the
smart.
information and then later on be like, oh, by the way, and it's like, you really could have told us that sooner.
He's just so smart he can predict what's happening.
I'm not complaining about it from that standpoint. I'm complaining about it from a narrative standpoint. If we've never heard this before.
Yeah, sounds like it would be
I mean, to be
useful.
fair, we haven't learned a lot about Grindelwald. We've only gotten snatches of him in the books.
Yeah.
And the first movie, he was barely there, and then they started to flesh him out a little more. So, I mean, to be fair, we are just really learning about this character. But it just seems like a big thing to learn at this point.
Yeah.
And this scene is also when Jacob gets the wand that led to so much complaining after the trailer. But as it turns out, the wand is fake, so everybody didn't need to get their knickers in a twist over anything.
I mean, it was concerning when all you get is a trailer for movies that have been questionable.
Right, but to be fair, a trailer shouldn't reveal that much, so you should, like, we were willing to give it a chance.
You should be prepared for stuff to not be correct,
And as it turned out, hey, it was just a tease. It's not real. And it was a very fun little plot device during the movie, Jacob with the wand. I liked it, and it played it... Not a major role, but it was used to great effect multiple times throughout, like, just him showing it off at Hogwarts and having just...
Yeah.
And then Grindelwald using an example, like, look, he's got a wand, he's mocking us, you know, and then at the end he's like, can I keep this? And I can think of nobody better. So it was used very nicely. It was actually very well done for all the complaining that I'm sure came out of that trailer.
Yeah.
It was not only much ado about nothing, but it was actually well used.
Yeah.
And of course it was part of that faux assassination attempt that Dumbledore set up for his, own reasons. You've seen the movie, you understand.
True.
Let's see. Secrets and lies, that's how we were raised. And Albus, he was a natural. So spoke Aberforth in Deathly Hallows, and here we see it in action.
Yep.
I mean, of course, it's for a good cause, this time at least. But again, Dumbledore being secretive, he's not letting everybody know what's going on. You just gotta trust him.
Yeah.
And of course,
look, it all works out in the end.
In Deathly Hallows, Harry's like, here it is again. I'm like, trust me again. Don't expect that I'm going to give you all the information. Just keep trusting me. And Harry gets frustrated with the idea of it, but that's very much in keeping with Dumbledore's character. So I really appreciate that. Again, not only is Jude Law's performance of Dumbledore so good in this, but he's actually written really well. This really feels like Dumbledore, much more so than a lot of the theatrical portrayals we've seen so far.
Like when he calmly asked Harry a question.
Yeah, I know. Hashtag not my
Harry
Dumbledore.
Potter, did you put your name in the Goblet of Fire? And the audiobook was, hey, what?
The audiobook.
Then that's the movie.
No. In the audiobook was the comment, Harry Potter, did you put your name in the
Because that's what it says in the book. It says Dumbledore asked calmly.
The audiobook is literally just reading the book.
Yeah, Dumbledore calmly asked. Have you not heard the audio?
No.
It's like an audio of it or something where it's like the audiobook section and then the movie.
Of course, from here we end up in Germany. Eventually the German Ministry of Magic, and we meet Anton Vogel, who's the current supreme mugwump of the International Confederation of Wizards. Apparently outgoing as they're setting up an election, which they were little speeches about in the movie. They never were that clear about what was going on. You just have to kind of infer it. And apparently in the 30s, the International Confederation of Wizards was a lot bigger than it is by the time we get into Harry Potter, because
died down after that war.
By the time Harry Potter starts, Dumbledore is the leader of the International Confederation. It's on the letter Harry gets in Sorcerer's Stone. Albus Dumbledore, headmaster of Hogwarts, chief warlock of the Wizarding Gamut, supreme mugwump of the International Confederation of Wizards. In this, it seems like it really does, and we know the International Confederation of Wizards instituted the Statute of Secrecy in 1469, I believe. So obviously they did have some sway over the Wizarding world. But by the time we were introduced to the Wizarding World in technically we were introduced when Harry was first born, so it would have been like when he was a little over 1, because he died the Halloween after his first birthday, so I guess it would have been 1981, right? Because Harry's a year younger than me.
Sure.
But when we were introduced to it at large, and we find out Dumbledore's the Supreme Mugwump is 1991. So by then it doesn't seem like it has that much sway over the Wizarding World, because it doesn't really come into, we see the Ministry of Magic in Britain.
Maybe things changed post-war.
Yeah, and things do change.
Because I just looked it up. This movie was set in 1932.
Not even necessarily post-war, but things do change over time.
Yeah.
Right? I'm just saying at this point it seemed like a much bigger deal that all the wizards get together and that the leader of the International Confederation of Wizards really holds sway over the magical world. But they never explain that in any great detail in this movie. You really have to sort of tease it out and know some of what's going on and just kind of figure it out as you go along. That was one of the things I thought this movie did very, very poorly, is establishing this election, what it meant, who they were, what are the stakes, how it's done.
Yeah. You
just have to sort of infer it from everything that's done, and it's hard to do that to a degree. It's still even confusing a bit if you've read the books. We see these posters there. I think they're Warner posters for Grindelwald. But they change languages. They change from English to German. Mm-hmm. And I thought that was really neat. That's something we've never seen before unless they happen to appear in one of the other movies.
Yeah.
But I don't know why we would have, because except for the Fantastic Beasts movies, all the other movies took place just in Britain. And even Fantastic Beasts, the first one was all in America. And the second one, they had some in France and some in Britain, but you wouldn't necessarily expect too much in those.
Yeah.
So it makes sense that we wouldn't have seen them before, but it is the type of thing that wouldn't have had, like I said, wouldn't have had any reason to exist in the Harry Potter books, but it doesn't really go against the spirit of the Wizarding World as we've learned of it, I wouldn't think.
Yeah.
I think it makes total sense that they exist. The children I don't have a big problem with, but we do talk about, especially spells showing up in this that we've never seen before. But something like this, again, there would have been no reason to see it before, and it makes total sense. So I appreciate that little detail. Of course, Dumbledore sends a message through Newt to Anton Vogel to do what is right, not what is easy. Mm-hmm. Those are basically the same words he used when he was addressing the students in the wake of Cedric's death and Voldemort's return. He says, if ever there comes a time when you have to choose between what is right and what is easy, remember Cedric Diggory. So I thought that was a nice callback.
Yeah.
I love Jacob mouthing off after they absolve Grindelwald. Jacob, best boy. Another thing I like about this movie is that it sort of backs up my theories that the Dumbledore brothers were relatively close, even if they did or do have a tense relationship.
Yeah.
You see a lot more interaction between them. You see them having dinner together, and the fact that Aberforth was forthcoming, like, yeah, that's my brother. And, he ends up on the final mission with Dumbledore. And so we talked about this, I think, in the last breakdown of Deathly Hallows we did, but I talked about the fact that even though a lot of people seem to think that they weren't close, and a lot of people don't even realize that they're brothers, that I think they do have a relatively close relationship.
Yeah.
And I like seeing that in this movie. The Dumbledore brothers having dinner at the Hog's Head, and then I don't remember if they refer to her as Minerva or McGonagall, but someone with one of those names interrupts. I think they call her Minerva, and I don't want it to be Minerva McGonagall because she shouldn't be there.
We know it is, though.
It's a completely different...
Is it? Do we know that for sure?
Yeah,
I really hope we don't.
Wasn't she in the previous movie?
But she shouldn't be there.
She shouldn't. It's 1932.
I don't even know what her canon age is as far as arguing that one way or the other. But yeah.
I don't remember.
Apparently this McGonagall is not an aunt, not a mother, but this is the Minerva McGonagall. Which would be cool to see if canonically she would have been there, but she shouldn't have been. So yeah, that still really, really bugs me.
Well, because I looked it up. According to this, for McGonagall, born 35, enrolled in 47, graduated in 54, worked at the ministry for 2 years, then returned to Hogwarts as a teacher in 56.
So apparently they've retconned it that she was there back in the 30s, and that just bugs the hell out of me.
Same.
And there's no reason for it.
There really isn't.
She barely does anything.
Show us one of the professors that were actually there.
Yeah. I'm not sure who would have been there at this point.
That we wouldn't know.
I know the headmaster.
There would have been multiple professors.
Yeah, I know. I'm saying once we would have known. Because Armando Dippet should have probably still been headmaster at this point, so we could have seen him. Slughorn could have been there. We know who were teachers at the time of Severus and Harry's parents being there, and so we Flitwick, McGonagall. We don't see Sprout. Slughorn was there at the time, but they're all old enough that they could have certainly been there.
They could have given us Slughorn, yet they shoved McGonagall in here for no reason.
Yeah.
I'm mad now.
To be fair, I'm not sure Slughorn would have fit in the way totally McGonagall was used. Mm-hmm. I don't know that Slughorn had Dumbledore's confidence the way McGonagall has, at least in the later books. Or the original books, however you want to look at it, the later story. Or just make up another professor. She doesn't have that much to do. Yeah. It could have even been her aunt or something if you really want to make a connection.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's always been an issue, and that's one of the things that they didn't correct in this one. I do think that by and large this movie goes a long way in correcting the sins of the second movie.
Not that way.
I think it really does. This is just one of the things that it doesn't address, and it's a minor thing, but still. We get another message in the mirror, the do you know what it's like to be alone, to Aberforth in the mirror, and again, I still don't understand why Credence is communicating with him unless it's just that, hey, you're my brother too.
Yeah.
Because he shouldn't know that Aberforth is dad, and I don't even know if Aberforth realizes that Credence is a son at this point. It's never completely clear when that realization is made. The scene of the Hog's Head, also Albus sees what's written in the mirror, do you know what it's like to be alone? And I'm not sure if this is the part where they put the pieces together or what. We don't see any more interaction between the brothers at this point, but still this specious mirror bit continues. Back at the German R office, Jacob just being fucking fearless. Also, how much of a fucking seer, or whatever you want to call it, is Grindelwald if he needs Queenie? And I know she's technically she's Legilimens, she can read minds. I know Snape goes on about how it's not mind reading, but in our slang, she's reading minds.
Then what is it?
But well, like he says, the mind's not a book to be perused at leisure, but if you have the right skill, you can ascertain certain thoughts and interpret them correctly. But regardless, I know she's not doing the exact same thing, but you feel like with that power, he wouldn't really need her.
Yeah.
it is cool to see Grindelwald have the Elder Wand. Even if I don't like the movie's design of it, it's consistent at least. It's the wand that Dumbledore had in the Harry Potter films, which would be the Elder Wand that he won from Grindelwald in the duel in 1945.
As long as they're consistent with it.
Which Grindelwald stole from Grigorovich. So it's cool to see. That's a nice little detail. That's something that is consistent with the canon, unlike the McGonagall post at Hogwarts. We see him use that wand to extract a memory from Letta's brother, who's being placed in a Grindelwald service to be a spy for Dumbledore to carry out the plan to have an inside man. And he says it'd be easier to trust you if you forget about your sister, or let me take that pain away from you. He pulls the memory out and it goes away. He's like, see, isn't that better? I bring that up because it backs up our conjecture that when you pull a memory out of your head, like we've seen Albus Dumbledore do and Severus Snape do with the Pensieve, that it's no longer in your head.
Yeah.
Not saying it can't be returned, because we've seen Snape do it, we've seen but if it's pulled out of your head, you're not remembering it anymore. I think this pretty much confirms that. We theorize that because Snape was doing it as protection against Harry seeing some of his memories.
Yeah. When
they were doing legilimency, or occlumency, I guess was the class they were technically doing, because occlumency is the defense against legilimency. But, so that's what we figured, but it was never confirmed. I think this scene pretty much confirms it. So that's another nice detail that works, and okay, that backs up what we've seen.
Yeah.
We get the big Dumbledore Credence confrontation scene, and I legitimately have no idea what that blow a drop of snow, come water through the glass, reverse image, splash Credence in the face thing was. So I have no idea if I should critique it or not. It looked neat, but I don't know what was going on there, and I don't know. It's like that couldn't happen, or we've seen that, but we've never. I don't know what it was. I have no thoughts. No thoughts. One thing I do have about this scene is Dumbledore says to Credence in it, "It's you. You're the one sending the messages in the mirror." If Albus doesn't know that, does Aberforth not know that? Aberforth has to know it, because why would he say "forgive me"?
I don't know.
Is he just like, well, I must have wronged somebody. Please forgive me. I don't know why he's going to have
has wronged a lot of people.
I got a history. I'm making my amends. I'm trying to do the 12 steps. That's what I'm saying. The mirror thing doesn't make sense. It's like, why is Credence writing to Aberforth? Why is Aberforth writing back? Who knows who's... Credence doesn't think it's his dad. I guess he thinks it's his brother. Albus, maybe Aberforth was just being secretive and didn't tell, it's nobody's next girlfriend or something writing to me.
Maybe.
But this is apparently the point that Albus realized it's Credence writing in the mirror. This is also the scene where Albus Dumbledore reveals to Credence that he's not their brother. He says, I don't think he even says you're Aberforth's son. He just says you are a Dumbledore, but you're not that kind of Dumbledore, I guess. So Credence apparently didn't know he was Aberforth's son, and Albus says in that scene, we didn't know. But he doesn't say when they found out. I don't think just now he put it all together. But apparently the scene with Aberforth sending having the message in the mirror, he didn't put it together at the time because he's just like, oh, you're the one sending the messages.
Yeah.
So it's very confusing.
The 2 seconds
it's very confusing as to when Albus and Aberforth realized who Credence was and why the mirror messages were going on the way they did. It doesn't really work when you really try to lay it all out.
That's the reason we don't try to lay it all out.
I know, but watching it, you're like,
I know.
Why the message to Aberforth? But he doesn't know he's Aberforth's son. And does Aberforth know he's his son? Does Albus know that? When does he learn that? Because like I say, this is the scene where Albus says, we're in the middle of the movie, and Albus says, oh, you're the one sending the messages. Even though he's seen a message in the mirror, I'm sure he might have asked, what's with that message? Or maybe not. And he tells Credence now, you're not our brother, but you are a Dumbledore. And we didn't know, so when did they know? And I assume Aberforth knew before Albus, and I wish they would clear that up a little bit. It doesn't ruin the movie by any stretch of the imagination. It's not even one of the more problematic elements. It's just one of the things that doesn't quite work, really.
Just makes you think.
And on second viewing, it bothered me less because I got into the movie more, but on first viewing, it bothered me more because, again, it doesn't really make that much sense.
Yeah.
So I was able to get sucked in and suspend my disbelief a little more the second time through, but the first time through, it really bugs me because the mirror messages just didn't add up. It also seems strange that they were having the climactic showdown in the middle of the movie. Yeah. You feel like this confrontation between Credence and Albus, this should be like the climax of the film, but of course when you watch the whole movie you realize that Credence is being demoted in this film. Yeah. He's pretty much not a central character anymore. And then the reveal in this scene is that apparently that water snowdrop thing was Albus creating an illusory background for them because all this destruction and going through the buildings and whatnot apparently wasn't really happening. Like they were really dueling or whatever, but it was sort of like Mysterio did to Spider-Man, in Far From Home, apparently that's what Albus was doing with Credence. He was setting up, which is a cool concept. It was like, hey, I'm going to protect the world around us and just let us have our thing and control the situation a little bit. Again, it's not something we've exactly seen, but I don't feel like it's too much out of the realm of what we have seen, especially since we still don't know exactly what we did see, but I guess that's what the whole blow the snowflake thing was all about.
I guess. Real quick, I just want to say, because I was still reading about McGonagall, I did not realize that she was once married and owned. No, according to this, she didn't marry the Muggle.
Well, okay,
she left.
She was in love with the Muggle.
Yeah, she was in love with the Muggle and was engaged, but ended up leaving without even telling him because she knew she was going to be breaking the thing and it would cost her ministry job. But then in 82, she actually gets married to her former boss or whatever from the ministry. But he dies in 85. And they apparently owned a cottage in Hogsmeade together. But when he dies, she moves out of the cottage back into Hogwarts.
That's all fascinating, and would be really good if I wasn't trying to do it.
Yeah, I know. You were in between notes, so I was just like, hey, real quick, I'm just gonna toss a bit of McGonagall knowledge.
Actually, the last note to this Dumbledore Credence scene is perhaps that snowflake drop of water thing wasn't him creating a background, because we see Dumbledore take what seems to be the Deluminator out and click it, and then the world rights itself. So maybe we're supposed to believe that he used the Deluminator to take all the fucking light in that part of the world away.
There's a power outage.
He has, but I mean, he just sucked all the light away, and everybody just standing like, oh my god, suddenly the sun went out. I mean, he can't suck the sun's light away. I know it's cloudy in Britain, but come on.
Well, wait, there was like snow or rain or something, wasn't that? There were obviously clouds in the sky then.
But clouds aren't enough to make it pitch black.
How cloudy is it in London?
He and Credence at one point are fighting this very darkened background. Then afterwards we see him, he's got Credence on the ground, the camera spins, or their perspective, they flip from facing one way to facing the other, and then Dumbledore pulls him out of his pocket, and it looks like the Illuminator, and he lets something out, and then the light comes back on. So it looks like he just took all the light in that part of the world away with it. I know that Illuminator's powerful, but come on.
It's just your casual power outage.
See, stuff like this, though, bugs me, because in the books, you have time to have details about how this stuff works. And I'm not saying it's super in-depth, but it's more in-depth than you would get in a film. Mm-hmm. So if you're going to introduce new elements in a film, you have to explain them to a degree. I mean, you don't have to. Even this scene, I can live with for the most part until I notice it looks like he's using the Deluminator. And I'm like, he pulls streetlights out one at a time on Harry Street. It's not like he just sucks all the light out of the world.
Maybe he can control it.
Then why not just do it all at one time? There'd be no point
Dramatic
in doing
effect.
For whom?
For him!
For McGonagall down the end of the street?
He's a theater kid, okay?
He's very much a theater kid.
He knows McGonagall's down the end of the street, so he's like, I mean, even then, I think it would be more dramatic to suck all the light out of the world at once.
Not for him! He's like, oh, been there, done that. Let me do it this way.
But, I mean, again, overall, I like the scene, and I don't think the spell was too much, but I do think maybe the Deluminators... But again, it's not clear exactly what we're seeing, so it's hard to critique that too much.
Yeah.
And you know, I just feel like if you're going to have magical elements, supernatural elements, we talk about time travel in fiction a lot, just lay down the rules and stick to them. And they can be super detailed rules, or they can be just you know, very light rules. But just make sure you don't break them. And I feel like this isn't necessarily breaking them, but we don't know exactly what the boundaries are either.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I feel like if you're going to establish new concepts, we have to understand how they work and why they fit. And we're not getting that. So that's a little annoying. We see Grindelwald drive around a car that has either a magical or a fully sentient hood ornament, which was kind of cool.
Yeah.
And makes sense. I don't know how many cars there are in the Wizarding World by and large, but you would think...
Doesn't seem like a lot.
But you'd think if you're going to have one, a sentient or just magical to where it moves and acts like it's alive, hood ornament would make sense.
Definitely.
It turns out there's a Zabini and a Rogier amongst Grindelwald's crew. Those are surnames that we hear in the Harry Potter books for a Hogwarts student, Blaise Zabini, and for a Death Eater, Evan Rogier. So that's kind of cool, I assume. I doubt that's the same Rogier, although obviously wizards do live and are active for a long period of time.
Yeah.
But maybe a relative, and I assume this Zabini is just an ancestor of Blaise.
Probably.
But that's cool. I like seeing those connections. Of course, we got that with Lestranges to a degree, although we don't know how they connect to the Lestranges we're familiar with.
Yeah.
The crabs. in that secret German prison that Newt has to save Theseus from. I didn't mind them as much on the second watch. Like I said, I was a lot more forgiving the second time I watched. The first time I could not stand them. But I do feel like those crabs, and even to a lesser extent the Chillin, even though the Chillin does play a bigger role, I feel like they were put in here though to justify the Fantastic Beasts part almost. Because it's geared so much into the Dumbledore and Grindelwald story. It's like, oh yeah, Beasts, let's slip some... Because I mean, this crab scene just makes no sense otherwise.
Yeah.
Well, just wrapping up the crabs, I hate the fucking crab walk. I'm way more forgiving about the crabs in the second one, but I hate that stupid crab walk.
Yeah.
Meanwhile, we, someplace, I think it's the place where we have the assassination attempt, but there's a point where at like a formal gala, and there's a band. Actually, I don't think it's a band. I think it's instruments playing themselves under the direction of what looks to be a house elf, but the house elf is wearing a jacket, shirt, tie combo. Why is a house elf wearing clothes? I mean, I'm not against it personally.
Somebody gave the house elf clothes.
Then they freed it.
Yeah.
Yeah, but then why is he there just playing music?
Because it wants to play music. Why is Dobby in the kitchens at Hogwarts?
But apparently Dobby is considered an oddball amongst the house elf, and I wouldn't think in the 30s they were more lenient about that kind of stuff.
Well, that one was probably definitely an oddball too.
It's just strange. And he almost looks like a goblin. So I'm not 100% sure he's a house elf. He could be a goblin. And it's never mentioned one way or the other. But if it's a house elf, I don't understand why he's dressed.
He's both. He's a half house elf, half goblin.
And then we return to Hogwarts, and we get the call back of John Williams' Harry Potter theme, which is one of the best beats of the movie. Because for all the things that I think the Harry Potter movies do wrong, John Williams' score is fantastic. And then that Harry Potter song is iconic.
Facts.
And rightfully so. So that's nice to hear. Then we have Jacob... And I think Lally's there in the Great Hall at what seems to be lunchtime for the Hogwarts students. Maybe it's breakfast, I don't know. But it's just, how common is it for non-teacher adults to hang out in the Great Hall?
It doesn't seem like a very common thing.
I know at the final task of the Triwizard Tournament, the families of the participants were able to come and spend the day at Hogwarts, and they ate lunch and dinner and stuff. That's like a very special event. Right, it's a special occasion. I was a little confused about Lally's character. I think she's a professor at the American school.
Oh,
you think she's at the British?
I thought she was at Hogwarts.
Well, she and Dumbledore seem to be acquaintances, but not people who interact that often.
Who knows?
And her accent was somewhat specious too. I couldn't tell if it was just like a upper crust American or if it was slightly British.
What it was?
I thought she was an American teacher.
How do you spell her name?
Lally is Lally. The actress is Jessica Williams.
Yeah, no, I need that.
Lally is like a nickname, but that's the only thing I can remember.
Yeah, Lally Hicks.
Yeah, I got the impression she was a teacher at the American school.
I'm researching it now. She is an American witch. Well, at Ilvermorny. Yep.
So again, how common is she's not a teacher there.
Yeah. And
she's not even like a visiting teacher. She's there just to see Albus, so I wonder how common it is for adults to just hang out in the Great Hall.
I mean, I guess if it was a mealtime, they're welcome to join them for the meal.
And I also wonder, is Jacob the only Muggle to ever eat at Hogwarts?
That I definitely do not have an answer for.
Maybe.
That's all I can give is maybe.
I mean, unless the kids' families, if they've got Muggle parents, you know, their parents would have been Muggles in the Great Hall then.
Right, but the only example we see of that occurs during Harry's time. And I mean, technically Harry has a Muggle family, and he thinks, did the Dursleys show up? But it turns out to be Molly Weasley and Bill Weasley.
Harry does not have family that's going to be showing up at Hogwarts.
Yeah, because Victor and Fleur and Cedric all go to the room off the Great Hall where they're supposed to meet with their families, and Harry lags behind like, I don't have any family. And I think Cedric said something like, Harry, they're waiting for you. Come on. He's like, did the Dursleys show up? And he comes to
the finally love me?
And it's Bill and Molly, and it's a really nice scene, and having them at Hogwarts really nice.
I mean, yeah,
I wish they hadn't cut that out of the movie. I think it's really nice, but they don't even introduce Bill until the 7th movie. And then all of a sudden it's like, oh, nice to meet you, Harry. I'm here to help save your life. But
nice to meet you. We met 3 years ago. 4 years ago, however long it's been. But
not in the movie world. Not in the Potter cinematic universe.
The Harry Potter cinematic universe.
I think it's funny if it's Potter cinematic universe because that's PCU. HPCU sounds like a bathroom bill.
God.
Or historically pink colleges and universities. Well, you know, historically black colleges and universities, HBCU.
Yeah.
So let's see. At Hogwarts, we established that Newt's a Hufflepuff.
Makes sense.
Because he makes a comment.
That he's very Hufflepuff.
And Dumbledore says, very good, 3 points to Hufflepuff.
He's very Hufflepuff.
Did Hufflepuff actually get those 3 points when Dumbledore said that to Newt? That's what I want to know.
Yes, he went back and was like,
well, I mean, once
Hufflepuffs, y'all got 3 points. Don't ask questions.
You're Hufflepuff alumnus. I mean,
they can acknowledge it's 32, and he's like, 3 points. let's just skip up 60 years, and he's like 50 points.
Yeah,
I mean, remember,
by the end of book 1, at the beginning of book 1, they're doing like 1 and 2 points. I pointed that out in our walk. They're taking like just a point here.
Yeah, house point inflation.
in 1 year. It stayed the same for 60 years.
Even when they fight the troll, like Harry and Ron each get 10 points, and then Hermione loses 10 points for going after the troll. So we're not talking a ton of points.
But honestly, I'd say
that would make inflation though. Like that would make sense. In the 30s, you would think it would probably go up.
Yeah.
But yeah, I just do wonder though, because I mean, it seems like the kind of thing like Hufflepuff alumnus, the 3 points off a point.
Yeah.
I mean, knowing how the house point system is pretty much whenever, probably.
Yeah, he probably just returned to Hogwarts.
Honestly, they can give house points or take them whenever they want.
Have a nice day.
Here I point out to something we were talking about earlier. While I know they instituted the Statute of Secrecy in 1469, I believe, the International Confederation of Wizards seems even more of a big deal at this point. Speaking of the time period in we see in Fantastic Beasts, Secrets of Dumbledore, because they hardly seemed to register during Harry's time.
Yeah.
And interestingly enough, like I say, Albus, when we're first introduced to him, technically not, when Harry's first introduced to him as the headmaster of Hogwarts on the letterhead, for his letter to go to Hogwarts, it says he's Supreme Mugwump of the International Federation of Wizards. Then 5 years later, in Order of the Phoenix, after all the brouhaha with Voldemort returning and Dumbledore beating the drum for Voldemort having returned and the Ministry trying to hush it up and say no he hasn't, it says he's voted out. Now, technically it doesn't say Supreme Mugwump, it says as chairman of, or chairperson of the International Federation of Wizards. But I'm wondering, so we go from the International Federation of Wizards seeming to have sway over the whole wizarding world to all of a sudden the British Ministry having sway over the International Federation of Wizards?
Yeah.
So that's a big switch there. And he is reinstated by... Technically, he's reinstated to the International Federation of Wizards, not as chairperson. So it's a little suspicious exactly what his role is. But it's more about the sway of the Confederation of Wizards. It seems like a very big deal in this time. And by the time we're in the Wizarding world in Harry's time, it doesn't seem to matter that much.
The Ministry has more power by then.
They have a meeting at the...
makes me think of the British monarchy. But how, of course, at one point in time,
right? But
they had a lot of power, and now Parliament.
Now, even during Harry's time, you could almost read it like the International Federation of Wizards is a British thing.
Well, yeah.
To represent international cooperation, except for the fact they do point out that they established the Statute of Secrecy. But at this point, it's clearly a worldwide thing. Yeah. Which would make sense again being international. Let's see, they have a meeting at the Hog's Head, and then Dumbledore says, Albus says, rooms have been arranged for you in the village to Lally and Jacob, Newt, Theseus, et al. Why don't they just say the Hog's Head? The Hog's Head is an inn.
Who knows?
They have rooms when Sybil Trelawney stayed there when she made the prophecy and was overheard by Snape, causing Voldemort to hunt down Harry.
Yeah.
She does say there's bed bugs at the Hog's Head, and she does recommend staying there where her funds were low.
It happens.
But if they're not staying at the Hog's Head, are they staying at the Three Broomsticks? The other inn we know about in the town.
Maybe.
Or are they just staying in like private places?
Why does the town have two inns? I picture it as being a relatively small town.
I know, especially historically, and from reading like Lord of the Rings, inns are sort of like bars and hotels at the same time. So maybe it's not that. I mean, you'd have more than one restaurant in a town. Yeah. Even a small town, potentially, so.
Competitive business.
Does the town get enough to really need two inns,
Well, it is the only fully magical town in Britain.
True.
So they probably do get a fair amount of visitors.
Yes.
Anyway, moving on from that. This is another mirror message. I want to come home in the mirror. And then this is when Albus says to Aberforth, he's your son, he needs you. I don't think that Albus is revealing that relationship to Aberforth. Like he's saying, he's your son.
Yeah.
I'm just telling you that now, bro. I think it's more like he's just reiterating, well, he is your son, he needs you.
Yeah.
But then Albus tells Newt that he knows the messages from Credence, and he reveals to Newt that Credence is Aberforth's son. So again, I'm just trying to piece together the mirror messages and make them make sense. Because they just don't quite make sense to me. Why he would be communicating with Aberforth and Aberforth he, and when did they know he was Aberforth's son? When did Albus find out about that? When does Credence find out about that? Because technically, Albus doesn't say in that one scene that you're Aberforth's son.
True.
But I do want to know if Credence was really conceived around the time that Ariana, the Dumbledore's sister, died. Does that timeline match up? I mean, we know she died like right after Albus left. Like I think he was like 19 at the time. Mm-hmm. So you said we were what, 32?
Yeah.
Credence is probably 20 at this point. That put it around 1912. I think Dumbledore was born at the end of the 1800s, so it's probably pretty close. You could probably make a case for it.
On the Wiki, which I will argue has, of course, been updated over time and everything, but on the Wiki, it says that she died late summer 1899, aged 14.
When I say I would argue that would not match up at all. I don't think Credence is 33.
I don't know. I just know that according to this that she was born in 1885.
Not to say that Ezra Miller's not 33 at the point of making that movie. I don't know how old Ezra Miller is, but I mean, Credence was living in an orphanage. We're 6 years on from the first movie.
Yeah.
I don't think he was. He could have been like late teens, early 20s. I didn't read that he's almost 30 in the first movie, so I think it might be slightly off. But again, I don't know where those dates come from either. Is that just people figuring, or is that actually?
I'm trying to check. There wasn't a citation thing.
Because there's no
whatever for her thing on Credence's page. It does say he was born in spring 1900, which makes him 32 in this film.
So that makes him 26 in the first movie when he's still living at the orphanage. Mm-hmm. I mean, maybe. I don't buy that. The way, and he's kind of browbeaten by his mother, his adoptive mother, or whomever. Maybe. But I read him as younger than that, personally.
According to the note reference stuff on it, it says, Credence's father, Aberforth, met his mother in the summer of 1899, meaning Credence was likely born around spring 1900. Crimes of Grindelwald, original screenplay, scene 105, sets the ship voyage to be in 1901, although Credence's adoption certificate gives the date of November 9th, 1904.
Okay. Yeah, I forgot there was a second movie there from I had Down syndrome from it. I forgot that some of this might have been covered in that, but well, I mean,
so apparently he's in his 30s.
That seems off. And Credence does not read that old to me. Does he read that old to you?
No.
And again, I'm not even worried about how old the actor playing him is, because people play younger and older in movies.
The adoption certificate provided.
Right, that's the date of adoption and not the date of birth.
Yeah. But clearly he had to be born prior to that.
Even if he was born in 1904, that still puts him being 28 in this movie, which would put him being 20. Now, I could buy him being 22 in the first movie. I could buy him being just into his 20s. But, I mean, and those dates obviously are canon because they're from the movie.
Yeah.
The Ariana dates, where are they coming from, though?
That I don't know for sure.
All the Ariana talk is in Deathly Hallows, and there's no dates in that. It's just the summer Albus was going to go do this. I know Aberforth was going to go back to Hogwarts, so he hadn't left school yet, and Albus had been out of school for a couple years. But there's no actual dates in the books. They would have to come from ancillary writings, like you say, on Pottermore or what have you. It's not Pottermore anymore, it's the Wizarding World, but still. Guys,
don't forget to include the last name when researching this stuff. If anybody was curious, Ariana Grande was born June 26, 1993.
Ah, thanks. I was really looking for that information. Couldn't find it anywhere.
Oh my gosh. Okay, hold on. There was a note / reference for her death. Yeah.
I always thought it would be neat if they wrote a book. Because, Rita Skeeter writes the book, The Life and Lives of Albus Dumbledore. Mm-hmm. And I kind of not like to read it, because obviously it would be slanted against Albus. But it would still be neat for the information contained if they actually did an actual publication of that book, other than just the snippets we get in Deathly Hallows.
Yeah. Okay, according to the wiki again, it says, in Harry Potter and the Deathly Hallows, Chapter 18, it is stated that Albus received a letter informing him of Kendra's death shortly after leaving Hogwarts in mid-June 1899, that he befriended Gellert Grindelwald that summer, and that this friendship ended after barely 2 months when Ariana was killed.
Right, but I'm saying the date itself, that date is not in this book, I guarantee you.
Okay.
It does say shortly after leaving Hogwarts, yes.
Yeah, according to this, is mentioned.
Hold on. Hey, Dill, talk about something. Talk about Ariana Grande or something.
Yeah, so Ariana Grande's in Fortnite.
Great,
She had a little event.
Yeah, she did. Like, all
Harry Potter's not in Fortnite.
Should
surprisingly.
That would be cool, though.
Yeah, Goku's.
Well, I don't know. Do we want to see Harry Potter with a gun?
Wait. We've got pictures of Daniel Radcliffe with guns from whatever he was in.
I want to see Dumbledore with a gun.
No. I mean, okay, obviously that would be an option, because I guess you can mix and match what you're using, but they have to come up with the wands and new attacks.
That'd probably be a mythic item.
I don't care what it is, it needs to be an option.
Hey, I'm cranking 90s on Voldemort!
Here's the first thing I can find is, again, an excerpt from The Life and Lives of Albus Dumbledore. It's in the chapter called The Life and Lives of Albus Dumbledore.
Which chapter is that?
The Life and Lives of
Deathly Hallows.
Yes.
Let's see, 18.
Okay, that's the chapter this claims to be from.
Now approaching his 18th birthday, Dumbledore left Hogwarts in a blaze of glory. Head boy, prefect, winner of the Barnabas Finkley Prize for exceptional spellcasting, British youth representative to the Wizengamot, gold medal winner for groundbreaking contribution to the International Alchemical Conference in Cairo. Dumbledore intended next to take a grand tour with Alpheus Dogbreath Dodge, the dim-witted but devoted sidekick he had picked up at school. The two men were staying at the Leaky Cauldron in London, preparing to depart for Greece the following morning when an owl arrived bearing news of Dumbledore's mother's death. Interviewed Kinder's death, certainly Dumbledore. Okay, there's no date in here.
Okay.
That's what I'm saying. There's not really that many dates. There's some dates, like I say, the Statute of Secrecy date.
Can somebody tell me why all these people have wiki pages? Yeah, Dumbledore gets a Wikipedia page?
He probably has a wiki page, too.
Yeah, but, like, he's got a full Wikipedia page.
Because he's one of the most important characters in Harry Potter.
Still, though.
And again, if there's a canon date for Albus's birth, you can extrapolate the time he left Hogwarts.
Yeah, I'm trying to see if we've got that.
But even that has to come from ancillary writings. There's no canon date for Dumbledore's birth in the Harry Potter books proper. Even like on his wizarding card, it doesn't give those sort of details. At least not what's stated in the text.
According to this, he was born in 1881, and it comes from his fact file on Pottermore.
What month?
Late August.
Okay, so school started in September, so he would have started school in, you said 81?
Yes.
So he would have started school in 92.
Yes. It's so
yeah,
weird
so again,
saying these numbers and having to remind myself we're talking about the 1800s.
Yeah. So yeah, again, you can extrapolate those dates, and that will add up. But again, you said Pottermore, right?
Dumbledore's birth date, yes.
Mm-hmm. Which I mean, I guess is canon enough.
Yeah.
Don't get me wrong, but all I was saying is there were no dates stated in the book, and I was right about that. So I guess it matches up, but man, I don't feel like Credence is that old in the movie. That's a long way of saying, okay, it does match up.
Yeah. Oh yeah, I was trying to see if I could find any more on anything.
No.
Currently I'm reading about it.
Well, I mean, that pretty much answers the question. It just
True.
doesn't... It's not that it doesn't make sense to me. I just didn't think Credence was that old in the movie. The scene does give us confirmation that Ariana was an Obscurial.
Yes.
Which has been theorized since Credence was revealed as an Obscurial in the first movie.
Yes.
And certainly made sense. It does seem like they're retconning Ariana's situation just a bit. Mm-hmm. Although it is possible that Albus and or Aberforth weren't entirely forthcoming when discussing her with Harry in Deathly Hallows. Mm-hmm. But for instance, the books don't make it seem like she was dying or ever really in pain. I mean, emotional pain.
Yeah.
I don't know if y'all remember the story of Ariana, but when she was very young...
I'm currently reading it.
Well, just let me state it here.
Yeah, you're good.
She was attacked by several Muggle boys in the neighborhood. It caused her to turn her magic inward. She couldn't control it. She wouldn't use magic purposely, but it would explode out of her.
Yeah.
So she may well have been in emotional pain, but it's just... Credence is described... He's dying from this obscurial condition, and it's causing him pain as he dies. Ariana might have had some kind of pain, but it was never... You were never led to believe it was strictly because, this condition she has, which is, of course, not named in the books either, it was causing her pain or leading to her demise. She wasn't dying, so to speak, any more than anybody is dying as they live. It's just that she died from a wayward curse, and of course she could have still been dying and been struck down by a curse.
Yeah.
Again, it just that she was withdrawn and couldn't use magic, but it would explode out of her at times, and of course that's how Kindred Dumbledore died, because Ariana lost control, and that's why Albus had to come home and take care of the family. But in the movie, Albus says about the climactic scene between the brothers when Ariana is killed that Aberforth drew his wand on Dumbledore, or on Albus. Albus drew his wand, and Gellert just laughed once the brothers had drawn their wands, making it seem like it was just the two brothers that could have cast the spell that killed Ariana. But in the book, it seems like Grindelwald was involved. Aberforth says that Grindelwald used the Cruciatus curse on him before the curse that killed Ariana. Mm-hmm. When he was saying, you can't go running off, you need to be able to you can't take Ariana with you, and Grindelwald's like, you stupid boy, she won't have to hide once we're in control of the world. And
yeah, I'm literally reading this here, and it's quoting Deathly Hallows of him saying that Grindelwald used the Cruciatus curse on him.
Yeah, so they all three, and I could pull the book back out and read, I don't know if it's Aberforth or Albus saying it at the time, maybe both of them said that they're all three dueling. Mm-hmm. And I'm pretty sure Albus says it could have been any one of them, or maybe Aberforth says, maybe they both do. Alright, I went ahead and pulled out Deathly Hallows because I wanted to get this part exactly right. This is Aberforth's reminiscence about it when he's talking to Harry and Ron and Hermione when they're hiding out in the Hogshead just before the Battle of Hogwarts.
Yeah.
he says, and there was an argument, and I pulled out my wand, and he pulled out his, meaning Grindelwald, and I had the Cruciatus Curse used on me by my brother's best friend, and Albus was trying to stop him, and then all three of us were dueling, and the flashing lights and the bang set her off. She couldn't stand it, and I think she wanted to help, but she really didn't know what she was doing, and I don't know which of us did it. It could have been any of us, and she was dead. So right there, all three of them are dueling.
Yeah.
Grindelwald's not just laughing.
Very true.
And Albus isn't quite as forthcoming with the details when he talks to Harry. Mm-hmm. He just says, and then, you know what happened. Reality returned in the form of my rough, unlettered, and infinitely more admirable brother. I did not want to hear the truths he shouted at me. I did not want to hear that I could not set forth to seek Hallows with the fragile and unstable sister in tow. The argument became a fight. Grindelwald lost control. That which I had always sensed in him, though I pretended not to, now sprang to terrible being. And Ariana, after all my mother's care and caution, lay dead upon the floor. But Albus isn't saying that Grindelwald did it there.
Yeah.
And I know that because just a few paragraphs later, he says, Grindelwald was raising an army. They say he feared me, and perhaps he did, but less, I think, than I feared him. Oh, not death. Not what he could do to me magically. I knew that we were evenly matched, perhaps that I was a shade more skillful. It was the truth I feared. You see, I never knew which of us in that last horrific fight had actually cast the curse that killed my sister. You may call me cowardly. You would be right, Harry. I dreaded beyond all things the knowledge that it had been I who brought about her death, not merely through my arrogance and stupidity, but that I actually struck the blow that snuffed out her life. I think he knew it. I think he knew what frightened me. I delayed meeting him until finally it would have been too shameful to resist any longer. So that's what I was referring to earlier, too, Dumbledore's reason for not meeting Grindelwald, which I really liked the Blood Oath thing being something, even if that's true, something else to reinforce it even more.
Yeah.
But still, both of these reminiscences make it clear that Grindelwald had his wand out and could have been the one who killed Ariana.
Very much.
And in the movie, it very clearly makes it seem like it's only the two brothers who could have been the ones who struck the fatal curse.
I was on Wizarding World. I don't know who wrote the article for sure or whatever, but it's about the life of Ariana Dumbledore.
Grande?
I love Ariana Grande.
Anyway, scrolling through it reads the portion that Aberforth said that you... It says the Aberforth quotes that you read, and then it says, quite who cast the spell that killed Ariana was unclear, although when Harry met Albus Dumbledore in King's Cross after he was nearly killed during the Battle of Hogwarts, the old headmaster strongly hinted that it was Grindelwald who shot the mortal curse. And then it says the stuff that you just read that Dumbledore
Well, like I say, if you only go on the first part of what I read, it would sound like that, when he's like...
But then there's a lot more that this article leaves out.
When he's like, Grindelwald lost control and then she was dead. That part makes it sound like that, but then that's why I wanted to read that other part, because Albus makes it clear that he didn't know, and he thought he himself... And, of course, in the movie, they make it even more clear that Albus thinks he did it.
Yeah.
By leaving Grindelwald out of it, but, again, that's what I'm saying. It seems like they're retconning Ariana's story a little bit, and not even just by officially naming her an Obscurio, which we all kind of figured she was after we found out about Credence in the first movie.
Yeah.
But they've retconned a little bit more. And that, again, is one of the bigger problems in the movie. Like I say, this movie's not perfect, and there's definitely issues, and that's one of them. But it's still a very good experience overall. I do want to stress that, but yeah, stuff like the McGonagall thing and then this really do bug me, and I feel like, come on now. This was such a central story to everything that's revealed in Deathly Hallows and the Dumbledore tale that we've seen. It's a shame for them to retcon it a bit, which, I mean, they don't flat out say it's wrong. He says Gellert just laughed.
Yeah.
It doesn't mean he couldn't have drew out his wand at some other point. It doesn't mean his wand couldn't have been out anyway, and he was just laughing.
Yeah.
But he specifically says, Aberforth drew his wand, I drew mine, and Gellert just laughed.
So it sounds like all he did was laugh.
Right. Doesn't mean the Gellert didn't have his wand out while he was laughing. But yeah, that bugs me a bit. I can't deny it.
Yeah.
Again, we're still at the Hog's Head, and I'm moving on now because you guys got any more you want to say about that?
No.
I mean, I don't know what else to put in. And like I said, I was kind of buzzing about this movie. Now that I read all that again, I'm kind of like, man, they really did mess some stuff up. But,
there's some mistakes.
It's still enjoyable, though. But Dumbledore tells Newt that he and his friends would want to and should, quote, go home. But of course they're staying in the village, so they're not going home unless home is a British term for wherever one is staying at the time. Well, I mean, to me, going home is going to where you live.
Yeah.
And I guess technically for the night they're living in the village, but that's not.
I mean, they're in the village
place of residence,
right by Hogwarts, isn't it?
But I also wondered if
going home is Hogwarts.
Home is perhaps a British term for just if you go stay in a motel in Britain, you say I'm going home for the night.
Maybe.
Home is where the Hogwarts is.
And again, just a minor thing, not a mistake or anything.
Yeah.
Okay, now we get to another very polarizing scene to me when they're in what appears to be the room of requirement at Hogwarts.
Yeah.
And we believe that because
it's the room of a true
somebody think Theseus is, what is this room? Or somebody says that, and Newt says it's the room which we require.
Yep.
Which makes it the room of requirement, I would assume. But
I mean, why would it that way if it's not?
According to the Harry Potter books, Albus Dumbledore does not know about the room of requirement.
Very true.
Harry,
one of the few things he doesn't know.
Harry makes Hermione seem like he knows about it, based on a comment Dumbledore made. He's just trying to sell her on the room after Dobby tells him about it, so they can use it for Dumbledore's army practice. But he's basing that on a comment Dumbledore made at the Yule Ball when he and oh my gosh, what's Durmstrang's headmaster at the time of the Triwizard Tournament? Yeah, Igor Karkaroff. He and Karkaroff's like, Albus, don't we all want to jealously guard the secrets of it? And I don't know if Karkaroff should really have an Eastern European accent or not. I always got the impression that he was British.
He might be.
That he went to Hogwarts, and I guess a foreign wizard could go to Hogwarts, but whatever his accent is, he's like, don't we all jealously guard the secrets for the institutions in which we have been entrusted? And Albus is like, I would never be, cocky enough to think that I know all the secrets of Hogwarts. Why, just the other day I found this wonderful room that was adorned with nothing but chamber pots. It was when he was going downstairs to the bathroom and he took a wrong turning and he wound up with this room. And it's possible that Albus Dumbledore knows about the room requirements but didn't realize that the room of the chamber pots is the room requirements. It's possible, again, that he's just being Dumbledore. And yeah, he knows what it is, but he's just making a joke out of it, not revealing all that he knows.
Yeah.
But there's another passage in the book later on when Harry is going back to find the diadem in the room of requirement, and in its guise is the room of hidden things, which we've talked about before too. Like, why the hell did Voldemort think that he was the only one who found that room when it's full of thousands of years of junk?
Yeah.
But I digress. Harry's even like, I don't have the book. Well, I do have the book. I literally just set it down, but I'm not going to look for the page because I know the quote pretty well. Harry says, those model students, Flitwick and Dumbledore, wouldn't have stumbled upon it in their time. Because Flitwick being the head of Ravenclaw, he might have known where the diadem was, but he never found it. Where Voldemort hid it because he wouldn't have stumbled upon it. But Harry had too much experience needing to hide things in his life. So it makes it seem like the books want you to think that Dumbledore does not know about the room requirement. It does not flat out say Albus doesn't know. We're just led to believe that. And now,
Albus doesn't know.
Unless Newt led him to the room, was like, Albus, I know of a room. But even at that point, you would think Dumbledore would have learned about the room from Newt there.
Yeah.
So again, it doesn't completely break the canon that's been established. Mm-hmm. It's implied that Dumbledore doesn't know about the room. It's never specifically said.
Yeah.
This could just be the reveal that, yeah, he knew about it. Come on. Of course he knew about it. Which does beg the question why he never went and looked for the diadem in there or anything else. But then again, maybe he didn't realize there was a room hidden. Like it. Maybe because again, the room can take on many forms.
Yeah.
Maybe he didn't know there was. But again, that seems like I don't know. That bugs me. Dumbledore should have figured
Dumbledore
that
himself
out.
Doesn't know.
But again, for whatever reason, they're in the room of requirement, and Albus, according to the Harry Potter text, should know about it, but apparently he does.
Somehow.
They have a scene where they have multiple duplicates of Newt's case that plays out into Dumbledore's endgame for thwarting Grindelwald in his attempt to become head of the International Federation of Wizards.
Yes.
And each of the participants in the scheme here, Lally and Jacob and Theseus and what's Newt's
assistant's name?
Bunty.
Yeah.
And they all are going to take a case. I think Jacob is the first one to take one. And Dumbledore, he starts to reach one. Dumbledore like, clears his throat. And that seems totally like Dumbledore. Again, backing up my thoughts that this is the best cinematic Dumbledore. That as well as Jacob makes a reference to 3-Card Monte, which you guys know of, even if you don't know by name. It's the card game where you pick a card.
I definitely did not know it as
somebody's shuffling 3 cards and you have to pick the right card.
Now I know what it is.
But Jacob makes a reference to 3-Card Monte, and then Dumbledore and Jacob are setting off together, and Dumbledore's like, you must tell me more about the fine details of 3-Card Monte. Again, that's total Dumbledore want to know about a muggle card game. That's, again, pitch perfect Dumbledore. I love Jude Law's Dumbledore in this. You couldn't do a better Dumbledore than this. Again, it's working off of brand new material. It's not like adapting Dumbledore from the books, but I mean, this is Dumbledore. It feels so much like Dumbledore, and I don't think he captured it in his first appearance in what was the second Fantastic Beasts movie. I was always disappointed in him in that. And again, it's not all the actor. Part of it's the writing, part of it's the directing, it's a melange,
Yeah.
But this one just does it so well. Those two things are total Dumbledore moments to me. But I do want to know what the spinning thing is in the room is. Is it like
I have no idea.
Is it like Dylan was talking about with the book and each page being a different destination, and this is like a multi-destination port key?
Maybe.
Where each spinning part leads you to a different point? It's cool, whatever it is.
Yeah.
It seems porky-ish, except it doesn't go with you, so...
Yeah, it does seem porky-ish.
It's another one of those things...
It's a version of a porky that the Room of Requirement created because it's simply what they needed.
Okay, but I don't think the Room of Requirement can break magical. I don't think it can make...
Is it breaking
magical? Well, I was going to say breaking magical physics.
Is it?
I mean, I don't know, because I don't know what it is. It's not explained. That's my problem.
Well, that's why I said it's like a porky, just slightly different, as in it doesn't travel. It's just that in the Potter books, wizarding conveyances are pretty well detailed. You know, portkeys, flue powder, brooms, thestrals, flying carpets, even though they're outlawed in Britain at the time of Harry Potter's schooling. They're all fairly well established, and this is something that is sort of like a portkey, but it doesn't go with you, and it takes you to multiple destinations. And again, being a movie, you don't necessarily have the luxury of having a book where you can explain in the text multiple things. Yeah. But I'm just curious as to what it is. I wish they'd given it a name and explained it a little more, but it's fine. It doesn't ruin the movie for me or anything. Yeah. And then we get to the election for the new leader of the International Federation of Wizards. And Vogel, the outgoing Supreme Mugwump, brings out the Chillin'. And it's the Chillin' that's been killed and his spirit replaced by Grindelwald. So when did Vogel know about the Chillin'? And did he know that it came from Grindelwald? Or did he just wake up one day, oh, there's a Chillin' on my front porch? Again, it's not explained. And this is one of the things I talk about with this whole election. It's like, it doesn't make a lot of sense and a lot of details are left out that really needed to be in there. Yeah. And we see wizards and witches throughout the world watching the election on this magical streaming service. Just on walls and on wall hangings and stuff. Yeah. And they have like these magical screens. And this is something we've never seen in the Harry Potter world. Where did those go?
I was going to say, you think this would have, at worst, improved throughout the years. Yeah. Not just completely disappeared.
Maybe after the events of this election.
People seeing stuff? I mean, I think they want to be more transparent.
They dialed back. They're like, yeah, no, we witnessed this stuff.
At the same time, like I say, the Confederation seems to have dialed back in importance, but it seems like you would have used it for something else, like the Quidditch World Cup. Yeah. And then again, maybe they do.
Or we just don't see it.
Right. So it's certainly possible, but it's just something we've never seen before.
Maybe it's just something that's not used very often.
And again, in this case, you see it in a few public spaces, it seems like. Like the Ministry of Magic in Britain, people are watching. I wonder if it's the kind of thing that people would have in their homes, like TV. Maybe. But we only see the Wizarding Wireless Network, their version of radios. Yeah. But I wonder if this exists, if it exists for large gatherings, if it exists for private use as well. Yeah. But again, we don't see it anymore, so it seems like it's gone out of fashion.
By the time we get to Harry's grandkids, they've got it in homes. They've also got wizard streaming services now too.
Maybe it took too much magic or something to keep it running. Maybe it's too much of a strain on the magical power grid. We also see another thing that we've never seen before when Dumbledore's army, I don't know what to call them, the Proto Order of the Phoenix, are battling Grindelwald's guys. They do a spell and put one of Grindelwald's guys in a wall, kind of like Link in A Link Between Worlds. Yeah. And it's, again, another example of new, old magic that we've never seen before, but it is cool. Yeah. And I can't sit there and say, oh, wow, that makes no sense. But I can say, we've never seen it before. I'm not sure where it would have been relevant in what we've read.
But as you said earlier, there is clearly... We know that there are spells that kind of go in. Fashion, yeah.
And like I say, I'm not sure what context that would have... I mean, sure, they could have used it during the Battle of Hogwarts or when they're fighting the Death Eaters at the Ministry and Order of the Phoenix, but I mean, you wouldn't necessarily use it in those cases either. So it's not out of the realm of possibilities that it's just a spell we've never read about. Yeah. And it existed, but...
It did exist.
Probably.
At least in 1932.
And of course, so Grindelwald's henchmen are chasing Dumbledore's people, and they've all got a version of Newt's case, presumably sneaking the Chillin' in one of the cases. And Grindelwald knows the Chillin' apparently is going to show up in the case. There's a little future sight, but he doesn't know exactly which one or where it's going to be.
He doesn't get that much detail of the future.
And the henchmen have quartered Lally and Theseus, and they've got their 2 cases down there. And Grindelwald's henchman says, make sure it's in there. Mm-hmm. But he's looking at 2 cases, and there's 1 Chillin'. So shouldn't he have said, make sure it's in one of them, or find out which one it's in? I guess make sure it's in there in one of the cases, but it's still a little strange verbiage. And then different stuff pops out of the books to distract them, including a book that seems to be trying to bite them. And I'm thinking, is that the Monster Book of Monsters?
Almost.
Maybe. I don't know when that book was published. There's no publication date listed. Oh, Lexi, there's nothing official about it.
That might be!
We just know Hagrid assigns the book in Harry's 3rd year, and we see a biting book now, so if it's not the Monster Book of Monsters, maybe it's the first edition of it or something.
Yeah.
An earlier
That's what I
edition.
figured it was.
And then Aberforth joins the group, and he's walking side by side with Dumbledore, and again, I like seeing the brothers together. And then it was really stupid that she left him in the first place, and the reunion felt a little rushed, but we get Jacob and Queenie back together, and they belong together. So it was the right move at this point to get them back together, and I'm glad to see that. Again, making up for the sins of the past movie, whether it was done as smoothly as possible or not, it's good to see them back together. That's what we want. So, let's see. Newt is trying to get up to the top of this fortress or castle or whatever it is where they're holding the election with his case, and a woman who claims she's Vogel's attaché confronts him, and she tries to pretend like she's with Dumbledore. She's trying to get the case from Newt. And I wonder, is she perhaps the person who slipped the Chillin to Vogel? Because clearly she's in with Grindelwald.
Possible.
So that's a possible way that he could have gotten the Chillin. And I believe that it is Zabini who stuns Newt. Although I guess technically he doesn't stun him because the stunning spell is red, and his spell isn't red, but he shoots him with some spell and knocks him down. Mm-hmm. And based on the credits on IMDb, I think that's Zabini.
Alright.
Again, we don't know his connection to Blaze, but...
Yeah.
Oh, let's see. The Chillin used to be used to choose leaders in the magical world. Now another one shows up, and everyone's just like, fuck it, might as well get back to that.
Maybe they just became so bad one night, and they're like, oh, we got one again? Okay, let's go. We don't have to do it this
so just out of nowhere, no official channels to go through or anything, just, Chillin's there, fuck it, let's listen to it.
Yeah.
No questions asked.
Look, they just had other options while they couldn't find one.
But speaking
it was
of,
temporary measures.
It's a little sus how that whole election went down. It's like Grindelwald won by acclamation, according to Vogel. So they just cheered him fairly thoroughly and he wins? Or do the sparks they send up from their wands represent votes? And if they are votes, who's counting them? Who decides who gets to vote?
Me.
And still,
Look,
Vogel...
it seemed very
Vogel said acclamation, not election or vote count or anything, so just the acclaim they were showing them must have been enough. Some really weird way to elect leaders. That and a magical dragon deer.
Look, these were temporary measures until they found a new Chillin. They didn't give much thought to it. It was definitely a flawed system.
And then, of course, we get the scene with...
system with the Chillin as well.
We get the scene with Bunty showing up with the other Chillin, and there's the question, Vogel's still defending, no, this is the real Chillin, and all of a sudden that Chillin dies. It's like, talk about convenience. A real convenient time for that Chillin to be like,
yeah,
dead.
That Chillin
This
was
is the
like,
real Chillin.
Okay, great, bye.
The real Chillin, nah, it's gotta die now.
The Chillin knew its sibling was good, so it's like, alright, I'm out.
We die, technically.
And the interesting thing about the Chillin is they're supposed to be able to sense a pure heart. That's why they were used to elect leaders.
See, not a flawed system.
It's not like they just walk up to the best leader.
Yeah.
So they could literally bow to 10 people in one place if you had 10 pure-hearted people.
True.
So it's a little weird the way it works out, especially since...
Maybe they're somehow trained to him and do
they put the new Chillin down and he starts looking around and he goes straight for Albus Dumbledore and bows to Dumbledore.
Yeah.
So, and I'm
I'm
not even arguing, Dumbledore's not pure heart or whatever. I'm fine with it. I'm just saying he could be bound to... He wouldn't be seeking out one person. It's not like there's only one pure-hearted person in any group of people.
Yeah.
It's not the same as seeking out the best leader, so that's a little strange, too.
Yeah, just because someone's pure heart doesn't mean they know how to lead.
Well, it's not even that. It's just that, like I say, you have to find one leader, because that's all we're electing.
Yeah.
But if your magical sense is to sense pure hearts, then you could sense a dozen people in that crowd.
Yeah.
You wouldn't specifically walk up to one person, so it's weird that it's only walking up and weaving through the crowd looking for a specific person.
This is going to the pure hearts it finds, but, like, maybe they go with the first one it goes with, or they're trained, or somebody's kind of, like, watching it, so it goes to one, and then they pick it up and go, It's like, yeah, we don't need any more than one right now, thank you.
And of course,
unless it's a big one, then I don't know what they're doing with it.
Of course, the first person the Chillin bows to is Albus Dumbledore, and he's like, no, not me, but as I point out, he does assume that post at some point.
Later on. He's not ready for it yet.
And apparently it's at a time when the power of that post has been greatly reduced. I mean, that's when I was like, fine, I'll do it. It's not like I don't really have any power anyway. Again, so that's maybe an example of how the Confederation's power did wane by those days, that Dumbledore was willing to accept the post, when at that point maybe it was more honorary than anything.
Yeah.
Okay, the biggest sin of this movie.
Wasn't the Avada Kedavra problem?
Yes. Grindelwald casts Avada Kedavra. He doesn't say it.
Yeah. Still an Avada Kedavra
Avada Kedavra is a jet of green light, and the Dumbledores both cast a spell to block it.
Yep.
And Avada Kedavra is a spell that is said to be unblockable.
Yep.
It's what Mad-Eye Moody says,
block it with a spell.
I'm sorry, Barty Crouch Jr. in the guise of Mad-Eye Moody teaches the students at Hogwarts in Harry Potter and the Goblet of Fire, there's no blocking it by another spell, exactly. We've seen it blocked by physical objects.
Yes.
But somehow, them casting their spells, interacting with the Avada Kedavra, stopping it from hitting Credence, breaks the blood oath, and Dumbledore and Grindelwald are suddenly dueling in a world all their own, looking a lot like Harry and Voldemort in the graveyard at one point, with their spell with the beam of light sort of going back and forth. So I don't know how that works, because that was supposed to be because Harry and Voldemort's wand shared a core, and I don't think Dumbledore's current wand shares a core with the Elder Wand.
Not that.
But I'll even take, I don't know what little special pocket dimension they went into or why their wands reacted that way, but I'll accept all that. I can't accept another spell blocking Avada Kedavra.
You see, they blocked it with love.
I was gonna say, the love of two brothers.
You know, the funny thing is that I saw the first Harry Potter movie probably a decade before I read the first book.
Mm-hmm. The love for Credence is what blocked it.
And the movie was fine, but I was like, the end of it too was like Harry basically won out in the end because of love, not because of cool magic or anything.
Yeah.
I was like, it was fine, but that ending was kind of weak. Like, oh, he won because of love. Nowadays, I love it, but
yeah.
But yeah, no, I'm sorry. You can't. It's not. Yeah, there's no blocking it unless you have a lot. I don't know why all my voices sound like Hagrid today.
I don't know.
There's no blocking it unless you have a lot of love. And you can't block it with another spell, period. That's why when Dumbledore...
It wasn't actually the spell that blocked it.
Dumbledore apparates.
They just did the
suck it up. He uses a statue to block it. He's not like, I got a lot of love. I got love for you, Tom, still. You can't hurt me. No, it doesn't work that way.
Harry survived it with love.
He survived it because his mother gave herself, and her sacrifice created a charm around him. That's not the same thing.
Same thing.
No, the Dumbledore brothers did not sacrifice themselves. They sent a fucking spell out.
Yes,
it was
but that love for Credence or whatever, which is why they cast that
it's
spell.
It's slightly more feasible.
It made it possible.
It's slightly more feasible than just the spell blocked it. It's slightly more feasible.
It at least makes it where they didn't completely ignore the fact that a spell can't block Avada Kedavra.
It's a bad explanation, but it's an explanation.
I'm not gonna lie though, that duel is an intense scene between Dumbledore and Grindelwald. I don't hate the scene. I just don't understand a lot about it, but it's a nice scene between them. And then Grindelwald ends up in a magical bubble. Kind of looks like the protection around Hogwarts, the Battle of Hogwarts and Harry Potter and the Deathly Hallows when the Death Eaters are assailing it.
Yeah.
But it's not really explained again.
No,
it's just, magical bubble. Okay, we'll accept it.
It's all explained in this movie.
That's fact.
Those are the secrets of Dumbledore.
And then Credence says to Aberforth, "Did you ever think of me?" And Aberforth's like, "Always, come home." And Credence said he wanted to come home earlier in the mirror. So why does it take so long?
Who knows?
Again, I don't know when Credence realized, or when Aberforth realized Credence was his son. I don't realize when Credence realized Aberforth was his dad. The message in the mirror don't clear it up. When Albus knew versus when Aberforth knew, and when exactly Credence knew for sure. But we know Credence was asking to come home days, if not weeks, before this.
Yeah.
I mean, maybe he felt like he couldn't break away from Grindelwald or whatever.
That would be my best guess, is the whole Grindelwald situation.
I have another note here again, just applauding Jude Law's performance. This is the best Albus Dumbledore we've gotten on screen. And then speaking of Dumbledore, Albus says to Newt, Newt says to him, I didn't think you can move against each other. And he says, we didn't. He sought to kill, I sought to protect. Our spells met. Let's call it fate. That's not an explanation. I mean, it is typical Dumbledore, but it doesn't explain typical anything. Dumbledore.
Look, I don't know what the frick the wires are doing either. Still
don't know. They crossed the streams of the spells. It's like Ghostbusters. We crossed the streams and it made a nuclear reaction and stopped Avada Kedavra. I mean, again, we still have no explanation for how they were able to block the spell or how the Blood Oath vial thing was destroyed in the process. So it's cool and it's an emotional scene. It's well played, but it makes no sense whatsoever.
Yeah.
And again, according to Albus and Deathly Hallows, I read this part too, that he delays going after Grindelwald out of fear that Grindelwald knew and would reveal that Albus had been the one to kill Ariana. But again, in this, it seems like he was already convinced that he did it, and now the Blood Oath is out of the way, so why does it take him 13 more years to go after Grindelwald?
Other things. Maybe we'll find out.
According to Crumb, Grindelwald was never powerful in Britain, so he may have just been moving in the shadows for the most part, but obviously Albus was keeping an eye on what was going on, so I don't understand why it takes him 13 more years. And yes, I assume that's going to be explained in the miniseries or further movies or whatever.
13 years?
Huh?
What's with 13 years?
Well, we've established this was 1932 and the duel is in 1945, so...
That's the same amount of time Sirius is in Azkaban, though.
But we're still
left... Did his rating? 13 years of it.
13 years. Is that really right?
Yeah.
Because Harry's 13 when he comes out. He wasn't in X-Men 13 years.
That's what he says, isn't it?
Well, Harry would have been 14 by then. I mean, it's close. Look,
So
Harry.
the quote.
It may be. Look. Let's run the number. Harry's 1.5 when his parents die.
Mm-hmm.
So he would have been about 1.5 when Sirius went to Azkaban. Harry's 13. He doesn't turn 14.
Okay, I was wrong. Yeah, the quote is 12 years of it. Yeah.
That's right. Anyway, back to Fantastic Beasts. I'm sure we're going to get more answers as long as they do more in this series, either as the miniseries or as movies.
Yeah.
But at the end of this movie, we're still left wondering why it takes them so long.
Yeah.
Especially since in the movies they seem to retcon with Albus not really being that worried about finding out it's him because he seems convinced it was anyway.
Yeah.
Okay, so at the end of the movie, everyone is paired up. Newt and Tina and Jacob and Queenie certainly should be together, so I'm glad they are. And I like Lally, so I'm cool with her being with Theseus. Even though it is still a little disturbing that Letta is just completely forgotten and replaced.
Who knows?
So I'm not sure what's up with that. And again, hopefully with the news of the Dumbledore Grindelwald series, their story can move there, and we can get new stories with Newt and the gang and the remaining Fantastic Beasts movies. At the same time, I'm not mad at this movie. Best on-screen Dumbledore, got Queenie and Jacob back together, introduced a great new character, and Lally went a long way toward fixing all the issues that were brought about by the first sequel.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't necessarily think it's as good as the first Fantastic Beasts, but I think it's pretty good, and overall I really did enjoy it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Again, this isn't really a review, though. It's mainly just kind of a breakdown. Do you guys want to give it any kind of a rating or anything before we drop out?
No.
Nah.
Well, I think I'm going to give it a Fleur Delacour out of 10.
Okay.
Because it's pretty magical. Alright, come back next time when the conversation will continue. Until then, I am and will continue to be Maddie.
Lexi.
Dylan.
And this is LexiCon Included.
Bye.